Alex Reed, 103.7 FM. Hour 95. We're officially 1 week past the activation of the presidential continuity bunker, 7 days since the last live video feed from Washington, 6 days since the Department of Defense switched all comms to restricted military channels, and almost 5 since the first civilian satellite uplinks started going dark. This is where we are now. No official statements, no military briefings, no FEMA guidance, no Homeland Security alerts, just static and rumors, and one too steady silence from the Capitol perimeter. We know the president is underground. We know key members of command were moved within the first 24 hours. What we don't know is why we haven't heard from them since. Earlier today, we intercepted fragments from a National Guard broadcast out of the Midwest. No coordinates. Just this. Districts are sealed. Perimeter hard lock initiated. No entry or extraction permitted beyond Tier 4. That means isolation. Forced, sealed, and possibly permanent, at least in major metros. Los Angeles, DC, Chicago, Philadelphia. Confirmed Tier 4 lockdowns. No one in, no one out. Outside of those zones, things are breaking fast. Dallas went dark last night. Grid offline. Airports shuttered. Municipal water reports showing zero pressure in half the city. A convoy of private security was seen leaving the outer ring of the city. Unmarked trucks, full armor, heavy transport. Destination unknown. Locals are calling it a defection. And here's where it gets worse. Power grid fragmentation is accelerating. What started as isolated outages are now rolling blackouts hitting the Southeast and parts of the Rockies. Houston, Tallahassee, Charlotte, Denver, all offline or running partial backup power. If you're in those areas, conserve everything. Batteries, fuel, heat. The federal backup stations in New Mexico and Nebraska are reportedly running at emergency throughput only, meaning no surge support is coming. And if it was, it's weeks late. Logistics have collapsed. Supply chains are no longer chains. They're threads, frayed and splitting. Major grocery distributors in the Midwest are cut off from rail and highway lines. I've heard of families guarding bottled water with rifles in Alabama, gas stations in Ohio burning at the pump. Someone in Minneapolis said they walked 4 miles just to trade a can of propane for half a loaf of bread. This isn't about hoarding anymore. It's about proximity. Where you are now may be where you survive or don't. Now, this part's personal. I've just been told that the local National Guard station 2 towns over has gone dark. Their last known position was at the southern checkpoint. They were responsible for keeping our power stable and our roads monitored. They're gone. And when units go quiet now, they don't come back. We don't know if they were called in, or overrun, or if they just left. That's the reality. There is no chain of command anymore. There are only fragments, broken chains, fractured cells, and people like me still trying to stitch those fragments together with words and wire and whatever signals left in the sky. I need to tell you about something else. The water's changing. I've now confirmed, firsthand and through relay, that several urban reservoirs have been chemically compromised. Flint, Toledo, Baton Rouge, levels of chlorine, ammonia, and other unknowns have been reported. Some are calling it sabotage. Others think it's overflow from power plant cooling loops, systems failing with no regulation. Either way, boil everything. Filter if you can. Charcoal, cloth, even sand layers. Whatever it takes. Contaminated water will kill you slower than gunfire, but it'll kill you all the same. And it'll do it quietly. Meanwhile, at least 4 refineries have halted all crude processing. Gulf Coast, Pacific Northwest, Great Lakes, and 1 suspected in West Texas. That means fuel distribution has stopped. Within 72 hours, most pumps east of the Mississippi will run dry. Within 5 days, we'll see mass vehicle abandonment in suburbs and exurbs alike. Within a week, motion becomes a luxury. So if you're planning to move now. And don't just look for fuel. Look for people who still think it's worth sharing. I've gotten word that emergency comms are now broadcasting coded color statuses on certain AM frequencies. Red, armed conflict confirmed. Orange, breakdown in civil order. Yellow, contained panic. Green, stable but rarely seen. Right now, most frequencies are pulsing orange or flashing red, even in places where it's still quiet. Because quiet doesn't mean safe. Quiet means next. Before I go, one final thing. I received a shortwave ping from deep in the Appalachian corridor. It wasn't a military frequency. It was a civilian voice, middle-aged, male, calm. He said, "They're still down there, still watching, and they're not talking to us. Because we're not part of the plan anymore." And that's what you need to remember. This isn't about who's in charge. It's about who's left. This is Alex Reed, 93 hours, week 2. No answers, just updates. And I'll keep giving them until the wires go cold. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, hour 95. It's just after 4 a.m. If you're awake, it's not because you want to be. It's because the world outside your window hasn't earned your sleep. I get it. You want numbers, details, something solid to hold in the dark. So here's what I know. Confirmed troop movement in 6 states, not toward threats, away from them. Earlier today, civilian relays in Kentucky and southern Indiana reported convoy columns heading northwest, marked Humvees, armored transport, no insignia, not U.S. Army, not National Guard, no flags, just signal jammers on the rear bumpers and blacked out plates. They weren't engaging. They were leaving. And they weren't alone. Aerial drones have been sighted tailing these convoys, low flying, fixed wing, possibly autonomous. One broke formation briefly over Louisville, hovered for 7 minutes. No weapons, just a sensor rig blinking red. It scanned a crowd, then flew off. Make of that what you will. Now let's talk about the cities. Portland has fractured. I'm not talking about riots. I'm talking about a shutdown of all civilian access to public utility buildings, water processing, electrical substations, radio towers, guarded now. Not by the military, not even by law enforcement. Locals say it's a private force, full-body armor, encrypted radios, flashbangs used on unarmed civilians. Someone's protecting something. But it's not us, and Portland's not alone. We've confirmed similar lockdowns in Seattle, Detroit, and Tampa. Facilities being cut off from the public. Not out of panic, out of preparation. The question is, for what? Back on the East Coast, Charleston has burned. Large sections of the downtown corridor were torched last night. We've received drone footage showing fires moving block to block, fed not by wind but by deliberate spread. Acceleration patterns match controlled burns, not riots. City blocks collapsed into ash. No emergency response. No sirens. The port is dark. The ferries are gone. This was surgical. And that means somebody knew exactly what they were doing. Still no official word from Washington. Still no emergency broadcast from the White House bunker. Still no recorded voice from the president, the vice president, the joint chiefs, or anyone in uniform higher than a regional base commander. The only language coming from command is silence. And silence is a strategy. So here's what that tells me. Whatever's happening now, we're not meant to stop it. We're meant to endure it. And what comes after? That's the part they'll try to rebuild from whatever's left of us. But we don't need to wait. We're rebuilding already. On our own terms. Small steps, local voices, reinforced shelters, solar rigs, shared stockpiles. We are learning the truth of this moment, that the federal plan no longer includes the rest of us, that the triage has begun, that the country may not be splitting clean down the middle, but it is fracturing, line by line, city by city, until only containable regions remain. Here's what that means. If you're near a port city, assume all exits are closed. If you're near a major airbase, assume civilian flight corridors have been revoked. If you're relying on cell towers for contact, assume those towers will go dark within 48 hours. We are not in a holding pattern anymore. We are in hard drift. And if you're waiting for someone to come save your town, don't. Start from what you have. Find who you trust. And move. Now something closer to home. A freight line just west of us, one we'd been using for food runs, was taken over late last night. By who, we don't know. But every supply crate left behind had the same thing painted on its side. Not yours. Not anymore. Someone's drawing borders now, not with maps, with muscle, and if we're not careful, we'll find ourselves on the wrong side of a dozen invisible lines. Lines that weren't there a week ago. Lines that now decide who eats, who moves, and who gets left behind. Last thing for this hour. There's been chatter about the New Hampshire signal. An ultra-low frequency broadcast sweeping east to west across the upper states. Not static, not emergency tones. Heartbeat, monitored by independent ham operators and long-range antennas. Steady, rhythmic, human. It pulses exactly every 4 seconds. Same interval for 3 days. It's not Morse. It's not code. It's just there. Some think it's a distress signal. Others think it's a beacon from one of the bunkers that didn't seal completely. Either way, someone's alive, and they're trying not to be forgotten. If you're listening on frequency 55.3 AM, track it. If you hear it, record it. Because even a heartbeat, when repeated long enough, becomes a language. And even if we don't speak it, we can still answer it. This is Alex Reed. 95 hours into the long emergency. Week 2. No light at the end of the tunnel. But we're still walking through it. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, hour 97. We're coming up on day 7.5 since the bunker was sealed. Since the president vanished behind reinforced steel, and the chain of command retreated to concrete tunnels deep enough to outlast a war. Up here, on the surface, we're bleeding out 1 block at a time. Let me walk you through what the last 12 hours looked like. The Northeast Corridor is breaking apart. All transit between Baltimore and New York has stopped. Not slowed, stopped. Tunnels blocked. Bridges barricaded. Railway junctions severed, torched, or dismantled. We received a low-band transmission from a former transit dispatcher outside Jersey City. His exact words, "They're not evacuating, they're dividing, cutting off what they can't control." That tells us everything. This isn't an evacuation failure. It's not delay. It's deliberate containment. If you're within 30 miles of a population hub in the Northeast, get out now. Once the barriers go up, they're not coming down. Next, Memphis is offline. Not just power, comms, water, emergency broadcast, all of it. We had a weak relay signal this morning, short burst from a medic working out of a parking garage clinic. He said, "No more meds, no more order. We're seeing vehicles marked with DC plates pulling out with full cargo, leaving the rest of us to rot." That was 6 hours ago. We haven't heard from him since. It's not just that the city's down. It's that it was left to go down. And that's the part that should keep you awake tonight. Because if Memphis was triaged, your city might be next. Here's something else. We're starting to get reports that certain regions have been designated resource negative. Translation? Too few assets, too many risks. Not worth supporting. That includes central Nebraska, eastern Wyoming, northern Mississippi, inland portions of Florida. These areas are being systematically cut off from federal comms, rerouted supply drops, and in some cases, denied air support for ongoing evacuations. If you're in one of these zones, you are on your own. Let me repeat that again for the people still holding out hope for a Chinook to appear over the ridge. You are on your own. Start thinking that way. Now, if you still have power, if your local repeater is functioning, if you've got solar panels or crank radios, use them to coordinate. Build your own lifelines. Because whatever central authority we thought would hold this country together, it's gone quiet. And quiet now means collapse. Now a warning about communications. Satellite spoofing is on the rise. Several survivor groups in Michigan and Wisconsin reported receiving fake instructions to evacuate to FEMA sites that don't exist. When they arrived, they found abandoned lots, and in one case, a trap. Ambushed. 3 dead. 1 wounded. The fake transmissions came from a frequency less than 2 kilohertz off the official emergency band. Check everything. Cross-verify if you can. Don't follow orders that don't come with names, faces, or receipts. Someone's playing both sides of this signal war, and they're doing it well. Now, something colder. We've confirmed that Denver's Northern Command has issued something they're calling Selective Reintegration Protocol. Here's what it means. Only registered, skill-coded civilians are being granted entry to green zones. Medical workers, engineers, communications specialists, tactical logistics. Everyone else? Denied. No shelter, no food, turned away. If that sounds like conscription by another name, it is. We've seen this before. Just not on U.S. soil. And now it's happening here. So if you're hearing this and you think you're heading toward a green zone, ask yourself what you're bringing, not who you are, not what you lost, what you offer. Because survival has become a transaction, and the toll is rising. Quick update from the Gulf. New Orleans is submerged. Not fully, not like a flood, but like a city slowly being swallowed. The levee systems failed 3 days ago. The water didn't rush in. It crept, block by block. And now, entire neighborhoods are knee-deep without rain. Something underground gave way. Engineers from Baton Rouge say it's an infrastructure collapse, the kind that comes when no one's been watching for weeks. If you're south of I-10 and the ground feels soft beneath your feet, don't wait. Water doesn't knock. It takes. Let's shift to something you need to hear. Out in Arizona, a A group of survivors is building a mesh network. They've taken old Wi-Fi routers, rigged them to battery banks and solar arrays, and they're linking neighborhoods together, block by block. It's not fast, it's not encrypted, but it works. You send a message from the west side, and 10 minutes later it shows up on the east. No internet, no satellites, just people who refuse to go silent. They call it signal splice. They're willing to share the blueprint. If you're listening, and you've got anyone with IT skills, soldering tools, and access to rooftops, get in touch. We can rebuild communication without command. We just need enough of you to believe that talking to strangers is still worth it. Before I sign off, a final note. A man in Tennessee wrote to us on parchment paper. No joke. Parchment. Found it in a bookstore. He said, "I don't need answers anymore. I just need a voice to remind me I'm not the last word spoken into the dark. So if this reaches anyone, say something back, even if it's just a name." So I'm saying 1. Liam. That was the name on his letter. If you hear this, Liam, we got it. You're not the last voice. You're not even close. This is Alex Reed. 97 hours. DEFCON 1, Week 2. The country's still moving, but no one's driving. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, hour 99, 6 days, 3 hours. I just stepped outside. The sky was red. Not fire red, not storm red. A bruised kind of red. Silent. Wide. The kind of sky you only see when something big has broken somewhere far away, and the atmosphere hasn't figured out how to react yet. We're living in the wake of that break, and everything feels slower now. Or maybe that's just what collapse looks like when it settles in. Let me get you updated. Atlanta's green zone failed overnight. It wasn't a breach. It wasn't a riot. It was an evacuation, ordered from within. One of our contacts, still transmitting from the northern edge of DeKalb County, sent us a single phrase. Medical command has pulled out. No resupply. Perimeter fading. That was 12 hours ago. He hasn't checked in since. We believe CDC personnel were extracted by air late last night, under cover of a false supply drop. Multiple witnesses reported hearing Blackhawks moving low over the city, but no aid ever arrived. The last known civilian clinic in Midtown has shuttered. That's the third federal safe zone to go dark in 48 hours. Memphis, Charleston, now Atlanta. If you're still operating under the belief that there's a coordinated plan to reestablish order, stop. The strategy has shifted. It's not defense, it's retreat, which means we're not looking at a breakdown anymore. We're looking at a cutoff. Intentional, systematic. Some are calling it triage. Others are calling it abandonment. Either way, the result's the same. The country is folding in on itself, leaving the coasts and corners to fend for themselves. Now listen closely. This part's critical. We've received confirmed intel that some military units are operating under local command only. No national oversight. No communications from the Pentagon. Chain of command has fractured. That means rules of engagement differ from zone to zone. One unit might offer humanitarian aid. The next might open fire if you get too close. Know the uniforms. Mark the insignia. If they're not wearing federal patches, if they're rolling in unmarked vehicles, treat with caution. That includes convoys with private military insignias, including red diamond over white circle, black star inside a broken shield, blue eagle inverted. These are not relief crews. They're holding territories now, and they're not here to make friends. We believe some of these groups are enforcing resource lockdowns, not protecting cities, guarding assets, water treatment facilities, energy grid nodes, secure vaults. They're not preserving public order, they're preserving value, whatever that means now. Let's shift to the Pacific Northwest. Seattle is split in two. We're seeing a division line down the E5 corridor. East of the line, makeshift camps, blackouts, food scarcity, open fires. West of the line, limited electricity, guarded districts, and heavy patrol presence. The National Guard was supposed to stabilize the west side. Instead, it looks like they're holding it. One of our satellite watchers noted something disturbing: large-scale movements of modular fencing and floodlights being trucked north, toward the Canadian border. Why? No one's saying. But the fact that a border reinforcement operation is happening this late, and this quietly, tells you what you need to know. They're not expecting things to calm down. They're preparing to close the escape routes. If you're near a crossing, watch it closely. If you're trying to leave the country, you might already be too late. And if you're thinking about crossing wilderness terrain, remember, you won't just be running from what's behind you. You'll be entering airspace monitored by two militaries with no shared command structure. There's no such thing as a friendly border anymore. Now, something local. A rail yard 2 towns over was hit late last night. Not by military, not by infected, by people, hungry, scared, armed. We don't know how many, but they tore open supply cars and made off with everything that wasn't bolted down. Water, grain, fuel, wiring, batteries, first aid kits. By the time I got there this morning, all that was left was a dented tool chest and a single note, written in grease pencil across a cracked window. We didn't want to be like this. That's what sticks with me. The reminder that this isn't about good people turning bad. It's about desperate people reaching the edge. And we're going to see more of it. Because desperation spreads faster than infection. And it doesn't wait for the sky to fall. It pushes it down with its own hands. Let me end this hour with something different. A small station in the mountains, frequency 89.4 FM, started broadcasting a loop. A woman's voice recorded days ago. You are not the only one still awake. You are not the last light on the map. You are not forgotten. Keep a candle lit. Keep your breath steady. Someone is still listening. Someone is still walking toward you. I don't know where she is. I don't know if she's alive. But I want to believe her, because if we don't believe that someone is walking toward us, we'll stop walking ourselves. This is Alex Reed, Hour 99, DEFCON 1, Week 2. Still reporting, still breathing, still here, hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, Hour 101. The days are blending now, not just in time, but in tone. Everything feels like it's one layer too deep, like the lights dimmed slightly across the country and nobody remembered to turn them back on. I've got 6 confirmed blackouts, 2 military withdrawals, 1 refinery fire, and a prison escape. Let's walk through it. First, the grid. We've crossed the tipping point. The U.S. power grid is no longer a singular system. It's been broken into islands, fragmented networks operating independently, if at all. The Eastern Interconnection, stretching from Maine down to Florida and west into the Mississippi Basin, is shedding load every 3 hours. That means blackouts. Random, rotational, uncontrolled. Hospitals are running on generators. Water treatment facilities, not all of them have backup. Expect boil orders to be the new normal. Expect brownouts to last longer than advertised. In the Central Corridor, Texas is dark. Not just rural counties, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, all without power as of 12 hours ago. We intercepted a Texas emergency management scan that read, ERCOT failure imminent. Manual overrides inoperative. Governor not responding to comms. That tells us the control centers are either unmanned, sabotaged, or abandoned. And without centralized control, energy becomes a scarce resource, which means those who still have it will protect it violently. If your shelter runs on fuel, guard it. If you've got solar panels, shield them. The new currency isn't gold, it isn't ammunition, it's wattage. Now to the southwest. El Paso erupted last night, not with violence, with floodlight. 3 major intersections were lit up by truck-mounted rigs just after midnight. Our contact in Las Cruces watched from a ridge, said the light went up like a flare, but never came down. Just stayed fixed, bright, unblinking. And then the trucks moved on, northbound, toward the Colorado border. They weren't military. No flags, no emblems. But the floodlights weren't for searching. They were hurting. 3 hours later, the shelter zone at Fort Bliss sent out a last transmission. We're compromised. Sending survivors east. Do not return. They're not following us. They're watching the zone. Make of that what you will. But it wasn't an attack. It was something else. A containment measure with no explanation. And no survivors left to ask. Now to something smaller, but no less serious. An escape. One of the few remaining high-security prisons in northern Louisiana has gone dark. I don't mean they lost power. I mean the facility itself no longer broadcasts anything. We received a partial audio loop, garbled, compressed, filtered through 6 different repeaters. All personnel have evacuated. External fences breached. Repeat. Breach confirmed. No re-entry. Inmates are... Then static. We don't know how many escaped. We don't know who stayed behind. But here's what matters. Those inmates are armed, hungry, and off-grid. And if they're organized, they could take control of whatever's left in a 60-mile radius. If you're near Alexandria, Pineville, or Monroe, lock your perimeter. Assume unknowns are hostile until proven otherwise. This is not the time to assume everyone looking for help deserves it. Now a short update from the coast. Newport News Naval Shipyard has gone silent. That's 3 major naval installations in 5 days. San Diego, Pearl Harbor, and now Newport. No pings. No vessel signatures. No encrypted handshakes. It could be a security lockdown. Or it could be the last of our fleet disappearing over the horizon. I've heard theories that naval assets have been recalled for deep water staging, that they're preparing for something offshore, that another presence, not ours, is testing signals over the Pacific. I can't confirm that, but when the largest warships in the hemisphere go dark, that's not a drill, that's a shift. Finally, this dash. From somewhere in the Cascades, a man stumbled into a ranger station that hadn't seen a ranger in weeks. He had frostbite, malnourished, walking in torn shoes. All he had with him was a radio, strapped to his chest like armor. He said, "I kept the signal on me so I wouldn't forget I'm not the only one left." That's all. No map, no name. Just a broken body carrying a voice he couldn't hear, but still believed in. That's the point. You don't have to hear back to know someone's listening. Sometimes it's the act of speaking that saves you. Sometimes it's the signal itself. This is Alex Reed. Hour 101. DEFCON 1, Week 2. Still broadcasting from the edge. Still logging the pieces as they fall. Still watching the power fade one region at a time. But we are still here. And that matters. Hold fast. Alex Reed. 103.7 FM. Hour 103. 6 days. 7 hours since the bunker sealed. Still no official word, no video, no voice, nothing but hardened silence from beneath the hills of Virginia. And now? We're watching the rest of the map fracture. Let's start with the Pacific interior. Reports have confirmed what many of us suspected. Spokane is no longer part of the federal response grid. They're calling themselves Zone Echo now. Independent, self-regulated. They've set up roadblocks on all incoming highways, issued their own curfew, and shut down radio channels carrying Department of Defense traffic. We've heard this language before, but never so openly. This isn't just about survival. This is secession by infrastructure. And Spokane's not the only one. Boise, Billings, Missoula, Salt Lake, all running independent power, filtering their own water, managing armed checkpoints without federal approval. They're not waiting for Washington to respond anymore. They're assuming it won't. And they're right. Because at this point, there's no more united in United States. This is the great peeling away. States and cities and outposts carving themselves into autonomous fragments because no one knows what's coming next and no one's willing to go down with the grid. That brings us to something harder. A massacre. 27 confirmed dead in a suburb outside Kansas City. Refugees from a rural town wandered into a walled community looking for help. Food, medicine, anything. They were turned away at gunpoint. They waited outside the gates for hours. And then, something happened. No one's sure who fired first. But by sunrise, 27 bodies on the road, most unarmed, and one woman recorded on a bystander's device, screaming at the guards, "You don't get to call this a country anymore." She's right. Because if you have to kill to keep your perimeter clean, you're not defending anything. You're erasing it. We need to be clear-eyed now. The people still holding the line, the ones handing out water, keeping the radios alive, checking in on the sick, they are the country now. Not the flags, not the bunkers, not the faded broadcast frequencies that haven't made a sound in 6 days. You. The ones still choosing not to become wolves. You're what's left. Now to something stranger. There's chatter coming from the Montauk Array. Weak signals. Repeating numbers. Non-military intervals. They're broadcasting from inside the secure facility, one that was supposedly decommissioned years ago. But the code matches old NOA patterns. And the numbers? They're not temperatures. They're coordinates. Oceanic ones. I won't say more over this frequency. But if you're listening and you still have satellite positioning, track them. They're too precise to be random, and too consistent to be human error. Someone out there is marking positions off the coast, and they're doing it like they're waiting for something to arrive. Let's talk about food. There's not enough of it. Supply corridors have all but collapsed. Warehouses abandoned, distribution centers looted, frozen stock gone bad. Even in green zones, we're hearing about rationing fights. Half sacks of rice being traded for ammunition. Bottled water priced higher than medicine. This isn't scarcity anymore. It's control. Food is no longer a commodity. It's a gatekeeper. And those who hold it? They're writing their own laws. If you're farming, keep going. If you're foraging, teach others. If you're sitting on a stockpile, don't hoard it like gold. Feed people, or find someone who will. Because a fed neighbor is less likely to burn your door down than a starving one. And believe me, that's the choice we're all going to face. Now, a message, scrawled on a fuel drum outside a gutted truck stop in Arizona. We made it 7 days without eating each other. That's our line. If you cross it, don't knock. That's where we are now, measuring the end not by fire or bullets, but by whether the line of decency holds one more night. We're not at the bottom yet, but we're close. And if we fall any farther, it's not because the world ended. It's because we stopped acting like we deserved to keep it. Before I go, one more thing. We've begun receiving fractured pings from old emergency satellites. Not messages, snapshots. Cities still lit up. Convoys moving across abandoned airfields. Fleets of buses lined up in rural zones. Somebody's still coordinating something. But it's not being shared with us. No frequencies, no alerts, no broadcasts. Whatever command is left isn't broadcasting hope. They're broadcasting only what they need to rebuild after we're gone. So the rest of us, we build now, while we still have power, while we still have signal, while we still have each other. This is Alex Reed, Hour 103. Week 2. Still no word from the bunker. But I'm still here. And if you're still hearing this, so are you. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM. Hour 105. 7 days. 1 hour since the presidential bunker locked its doors. And now, for the first time, we're hearing something new. Not from the bunker. Not from command. From the void that came after. I'll get to that in a minute. But first, refugee collapse zones. We've been tracking 23 high-density shelter clusters across the U.S., church basements, public schools, transit terminals turned impromptu camps. 10 of them have gone dark in the last 36 hours. Not slowly, all at once. Water gone, power cut, leaders missing. Some collapsed under internal panic. Others fell to outside threats, armed looters, private contractors, even gangs with radios and patched uniforms pretending to be FEMA response. But there's one common thread. None of them were resupplied. All 10 reported expected airdrops. All 10 logged false ETA transmissions. None received anything but silence. In Lexington, a shelter of 112 people was left for 5 days with no food delivery. When another group finally arrived, they found the doors barricaded and every window painted black. Inside, one survivor, shell-shocked, whispering the same word over and over. Promised, promised, promised. We've confirmed that at least 3 of these shelter collapses occurred in zones previously declared stable by National Guard units. That means someone knew these sites weren't going to last and chose to say nothing. So if you're in a refugee cluster now, you need to ask 3 questions. Where is your next supply point? Who is in charge? And how long have they been? What happens if no one comes? Ask early. Ask out loud. And ask like the answers might be the difference between surviving and starving. Because now, they are. Next, rumors of cyber sabotage. We've intercepted fragments from surviving tech nodes in Minnesota and the Carolinas that suggest a wave of network anomalies right before grid partitioning. We're talking DNS poisoning, remote shutdowns of backup relays, administrative lockouts on shared infrastructure. In English, someone inside the system pulled the plug and made sure no one could turn it back on. We've seen malware like this before, but never this targeted, never this coordinated. It's not just that the lights went out, it's that the fail-safes were bypassed. A technician in North Carolina sent us the following before his uplink vanished. This wasn't a glitch, it was surgical. We weren't hacked, we were uninvited. Uninvited from what? That's what keeps me up. Because a collapse like this doesn't require force. It only requires a closed door and someone on the other side refusing to open it. Now something that shook even me. Earlier today, I received a ping from an ultra-high-frequency weather balloon that shouldn't be in the air anymore. It was part of an old NOAA pilot program used to track chemical signatures in storm systems. Except this balloon? It wasn't measuring weather. It was scanning radiation. The telemetry was scrambled, but it showed rising readings, not near reactors, but in areas with no known nuclear infrastructure. Rural zones, abandoned airstrips, underground facilities. It pinged 4 sites in the continental U.S. and 1 off the coast of Maine. Then the signal died. I don't know what that means yet, but I know this. Weather balloons don't just relaunch themselves. And someone wanted us to see that data at least once. Now to something even stranger. For the first time since the blackout, we've intercepted a classified frequency broadcasting from inside what used to be NORAD command. The voice was digital, filtered, not AI, but read through a synthesizer. It said, "Continuity breach acknowledged. Eastern Theater isolation confirmed. Phase 2 initiated. Civilian frequencies monitored. Reclaim priority established." Then silence. 5 lines, each one heavier than the last. Continuity breach acknowledged, meaning someone from inside the protected chain failed or turned. Eastern Theater isolation confirmed, which we already knew, but now it's verified from command. And Phase 2 initiated? We don't know what that means. But we do know this. Civilian frequencies are being monitored, which means this broadcast, this station, they're listening. So let me be perfectly clear. I will not stop. I will not sign off. I will not hand this frequency over to the silence. Because if we lose the thread of what's happening now, we'll never get it back. And what comes next will arrive without witness. We've lost Washington. We've lost the grid. We've lost the illusion of leadership, but we haven't lost each other. That's what matters. That's what holds. A final story before I close this hour. A woman near Barstow painted a warning on the side of a freight trailer. "We buried 6 today, all of them kind. If the world ends, let kindness be the last thing it sees." I stood in front of that trailer. It's real. The paint is still wet. So whoever you are, if you're listening, thank you for keeping the bar high, for reminding us that survival isn't just about staying alive, it's about staying human. This is Alex Reed, Hour 105. Still broadcasting from the void between orders and aftermath. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, Hour 107. It's night again. The kind of night where even the stars feel like they're watching from a distance, cold, detached, out of reach. Let's talk about what the sky saw today. Because above us, while the world burns, fractures, and forgets how to hold itself together, something is moving. And it's not ours. Multiple independent observers have confirmed sightings of unmarked aircraft operating low over domestic airspace. These aren't civilian. They aren't commercial. And they sure as hell aren't routine military. They're silent. No sonic boom, no contrail, just movement, smooth, fast, and controlled. We've tracked them over Utah, West Virginia, the Dakotas, and rural Pennsylvania. Always at dusk, always flying low, always cutting north to south or west to east. They don't respond to civilian radar. They don't broadcast transponder codes. And in every known case, they pass without stopping. I've spoken to 3 different amateur astronomers. Each of them confirmed the same anomaly. The aircraft are jamming low-orbit observation. That means these things aren't just avoiding detection. They're designed to disappear. And whatever they're carrying or looking for isn't supposed to be seen. Let's shift to the ground. Red zones. That's the term survivors are using now for cities that were once flagged for evacuation but never received it. Places like Philadelphia, Cincinnati, Fresno, Baton Rouge, Colorado Springs. They were supposed to be cleared. Buses were ordered. Convoys were prepped. Routes were marked. But somewhere along the way, the evacuation orders went cold. People were left behind. We've heard whispers, fragments from shortwave messages leaking out from inside those zones. They speak of checkpoints being repurposed, barricades turned inward, fires started not by accident, but by order. Entire blocks deliberately burned to create firewalls, not from disease, not from infection, but from movement. To control what could get out. Not who. What. We don't have eyes inside most of these places anymore, but one operator, based out of an amateur relay tower north of Sacramento, said this: Fresno's not empty, but it's not human anymore. Not in the way you'd hope. I'm not going to speculate. Not yet. But the pattern is there. Containment instead of rescue. Destruction instead of aid. Abandonment instead of leadership. These red zones aren't forgotten. They're being intentionally severed. If you're inside one, don't wait. If you've got power, use it. If you've got fuel, move. If there's a window to leave, take it before someone slams it shut behind you. Now, something that hits closer to the gut. The split in command has become official. An intercepted military frequency confirms it. A commander, signing off from Fort Riley, broadcast a message over a now compromised frequency. Central authority no longer functions. Units should coordinate under local protocol. Rules of engagement are discretionary. Do not attempt to re-establish contact with DC command. Consider primary continuity chain terminated. That's as close as we'll get to a public admission that the federal chain of command has collapsed. No president, no vice president, no joint chiefs. Whatever's left of the constitutional structure, it's sealed underground or scattered to the wind. And above ground, it's now command by whoever shows up first. That's why we've started seeing the rise of fragment governments, small coalitions, former mayors, sheriffs, state guards, survivalists, even ex-corporate security teams. They're stepping into the vacuum, staking flags on old courthouses and calling it stability. Some of them are trying to help. Others are building kingdoms. We've heard of a group in Southern Oregon calling themselves the Timberline Authority, enforcing ration laws and trade rules on 3 towns and 2 hydro stations. a sheriff-led junta in central Missouri operating under martial order continuity. A coalition of ex-NGO coordinators in western North Carolina offering safe haven to evacuees in exchange for labor. This isn't theory anymore. This is succession. This is realignment. This is the country fracturing into pieces with their own flags and their own guns. And in the middle of it, people just trying to find clean water, a warm place to sleep, and someone who won't shoot them on sight. Let me close this hour with something I saw just before sundown. A family, mother, father, 2 kids, walking up the ridge behind the station. They didn't ask for anything. They just looked at the tower, looked at the antenna, looked at me, and nodded, like just seeing someone still sending a signal was enough. They didn't say a word. They just kept walking, east, toward whatever comes next. This is Alex Reed. 107 hours since the line broke. Week 2. No president, no plan, no peace. Just movement and the signal. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, hour 109. It's just past midnight now. The wind outside has dropped. The trees aren't moving. The air feels thick, like the night is holding its breath again, waiting to see what happens next. And tonight, something happened. We picked up a transmission, not from a repeater, not from a survivor group, from inside the presidential continuity bunker. After 7 days and 9 hours of silence, we caught it on a wide sweep across the old Conelrad band. It lasted 14 seconds. A single male voice, crisp, controlled, precise. No background noise, no distortion. He said, Level 7 confirmed breached. Presidential transfer incomplete. Full lockdown enacted. Secondary executive protocol has failed. If you are receiving, this is not your signal. This channel is now under blackout. Do not respond. Then it cut. Gone. Scrubbed. We tried to trace it, triangulate the origin, but the signal was scrambled with military-grade ghost nodes. They didn't want us to hear it. They definitely didn't want us to understand it. But we did. Level 7 breached. Transfer incomplete. Blackout protocol engaged. Here's what that means. The president may be dead. The emergency chain of succession is likely broken. Whatever command structure they built underground is compromised. And now, they're not broadcasting control. They're hiding. If you were holding out hope that the bunker was waiting to step in, to restore order, to send help, to push a button and make this whole thing go away, let it go. They've sealed themselves in. And the rest of us, we're out here, still breathing, still burning, still trying to build something from the wreckage they left behind. Let's shift to the Midwest. A firefight broke out near Omaha between 2 rival survivor factions over a water treatment plant. One group was a community watch, retired law enforcement, EMTs, civilians. The other, a former private security unit turned independent militia. It started with a perimeter check. Then came the warning shots, then the breach. By the time it was over, 10 people dead, half of them unarmed, and the plant still offline. This wasn't a skirmish. This was a battle for control of clean water. And if that sounds like a line from a movie, remember this. Water is the new ammunition. You can't fight without it. You can't run without it. You can't rebuild without it. And whoever holds the source writes the rules. We're going to see more of this, not just over water, but over food stockpiles, radio towers, battery caches, even safe routes through forest and canyon. Territory is no longer land. Territory is survival points, and every one of them will be fought for. Now let's talk about the sky. One of our satellite taps caught a signal from an old weather monitoring array we thought was long dead. It's broadcasting again, but not weather, not storm tracking, warnings, short, sharp, repeating code blocks, encrypted military origin, no explanation, no key, just 6 digits, repeating in 3-second intervals, 2-1-5-9-0-7, 2-1-5-9-0-7, 2-1-5-9-0-7. Over and over. We ran it through everything: grid coordinates, date formats, satellite telemetry, nothing conclusive. But a contact out of Phoenix said the prefix 215 was once tagged to a chemical dispersal protocol under Operation Rain Vault, an old declassified continuity program. If that's true, we might be looking at a warning of biological containment failure, or something worse. We'll keep listening. Now, something weirder. Out near the Dakota border, a small survivor commune reported seeing a single man walk through their checkpoint last night. No bag, no gear, no visible weapon. He didn't speak. He didn't flinch. Just walked in, looked around, and handed over a device, a sealed plastic case. Inside, a drive. When they cracked it open, it contained a clean copy of the United States Constitution. No edits, no annotations, just the words. Then the man left, disappeared into the dark. The group doesn't know who he was. But the message was clear. Not a rally cry, not a demand, just a reminder of what we were, of what might still be rebuilt, and of what was never meant to survive a collapse like this. Let me close this hour with one more transmission. We found it buried in a scrambled file dump from an old FEMA repeater, powered by solar backup. It was labeled REDSKYECHO1. The voice? Unfamiliar. But it said, "If you're receiving this, you are now in the second stage of national deactivation. Do not wait for aid. You are not forgotten. You are simply no longer included. Survive, document, rebuild, and when the sky is clear again, start over." This is Alex Reed, 109 hours. DEFCON 1. The bunker is breached. The chain is broken. But the signal? The signal remains. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, hour 111. 7 days, 15 hours since the presidential bunker sealed. And now we know. It didn't hold. The command structure meant to outlast nuclear war. Compromised. The leadership meant to guide us through national collapse. Silent. The emergency continuity plan drawn in 3-ring binders and concrete schematics. Dead in the dark. They've gone quiet. And out here, in what's left of the country, noise is survival. Let's get into it. Breaking. Satellite imagery confirms presence of foreign aircraft inside U.S. airspace. Repeat. Not unidentified. Foreign. 2 overlapping signals captured by ham operators in northern Montana and southern Idaho. Identify a non-civilian aerial formation drifting east to west. No U.S. transponders, no recorded refueling, no reply to NORAD pings. They're flying at mid-altitude, using stripped comms, short range, line of sight only. We're looking at military planes flying black, either reconnaissance or forward positioning. Let me be blunt. Someone outside this country has stepped into the gap. And if you're wondering why, because someone always does. History doesn't leave power vacuums. It fills them with flags you didn't vote for and voices you don't recognize. These aircraft didn't enter during the chaos. They waited until our lights dimmed and our leadership locked the door. Until we were too hungry, too fractured, too focused on water and bullets and firewood to notice the sky. And now they're here, moving quiet, moving low, and no one's doing a damn thing to stop them. Report from Mississippi River Corridor. Water levels are dropping rapidly south of St. Louis. That's not natural. This isn't seasonal. It's mechanical. 3 key floodgates, Cairo, Memphis, and Vicksburg, are locked open. Sabotage, possibly. Remote override? More likely. This means farmland will dry. Cargo barge access is gone. Freshwater extraction will slow in surrounding towns. And the worst part? People downstream don't know it yet. They're drinking from a river that's bleeding out. If you're south of Natchez, switch to stored reserves immediately. Boil everything. Don't wait for taste or color to tell you something's wrong. By then, it's already too late. New governments are starting to emerge. I don't mean temporary relief councils. I mean paper-backed, uniform-wearing, oath-demanding proto-nations. 3 confirmed so far: the Central Compact, based in Des Moines, former state politicians and energy executives. They're issuing their own IDs, ration vouchers, and military integration notices. The Southern Ascendancy, operating out of Birmingham, using armed convoys to consolidate agricultural zones and seize broadcasting equipment. Not friendly, not subtle. Free Cascadia, Portland to Spokane. Unarmed so far, but growing fast. Focused on trade, radio networks, and soft power control of refugee corridors. These are not just communities. They are states in waiting. And they're already replacing what used to be the federal presence. One listener sent me a photo. A flag stitched together from 2 halves. One side, a torn American flag. The other, a spray-painted pine tree. In the middle, the words, "We begin again." That's the motto now, whether we want it or not. Not restore, replace. Quick update from the Northeast. Boston is burning. We've seen smoke columns visible from as far as Albany. The airport has been abandoned. The last ferry out of the harbor was seen drifting, unmanned. The signal from Logan's emergency beacon is dead. Witnesses claim the fire started not from riots, not from shelling, but from inside government property. State archives, administrative offices, supply hubs set ablaze. This wasn't vandalism. This was erasure. Someone wanted that city gone from memory. We've seen this before, in other places, other times. It always starts with fire and ends with silence. One more story before I sign off this hour. A girl, maybe 11, was seen walking into a fire watch station in the Rockies. She carried a broken cell phone, a backpack full of dead batteries, and one folded note. The ranger who found her said she didn't speak, just handed over the paper and pointed to the antenna. The note said, "If anyone's left, tell them we still remember their names. We whisper them at night. The wind carries them farther than we can. That's why this matters. Why I keep talking. Why the signal keeps going out into the dark, even when no one answers. Because memory isn't just for the dead. It's for the future. Even if that future's a whisper. Even if it's just a name spoken through static. This is Alex Reed. Hour 111. The bunker is broken. The country is unraveling. The sky is full of new flags. But the story's not done. Because you are still in it. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, hour 113. We've crossed the 7-day mark since the government vanished behind the steel door of a mountain. What's followed hasn't been silence. It's been something worse. 100 voices shouting in different directions. And now, some of those voices are starting to fire back. Let's get into it. Open conflict has broken out between rival proto-governments. We have confirmed reports of a direct armed confrontation between the Southern Ascendancy and what's left of the Gulf Coast Guard in southern Mississippi. The location, an old FEMA logistics hub near Hattiesburg. Why? Control of the depot, fuel reserves, medical kits, communications gear, and not just to hold it, but to use it as a regional command center. Witnesses described the first shots just after sunrise. The Ascendancy arrived in convoy, marked with their black and gold crest, armed and organized. The Coast Guard unit, understrength, undersupplied, but dug in. The fighting lasted 3 hours. Then everything went quiet. As of now, we believe the depot is in Ascendancy hands, and that's not all. They've issued a broadband transmission on low-band repeaters. All territory from Mobile Bay to the Atchafalaya Basin falls under emergency Southern Ascendancy jurisdiction. Trade may continue under authorized protocols. Non-compliance will be considered sabotage. Long live the sovereign South. They're calling it sovereign. That means this isn't just a defense measure. It's a claim, a border, a new flag. This is how it begins. Not with declarations, but with fuel tanks and roadblocks. Meanwhile, to the north, something different. An intercepted file labeled Echelon Exodus surfaced on an abandoned government relay station near Columbus, Ohio. It's short, encrypted but mostly intact. In the event that all chains fail, initiate fallback at Omega sites. If command is unable or unwilling to respond, bypass civilian protocol. Priority: protect data integrity. Preserve command lineage. Terminate breach nodes. That's government language. Cold. Clinical. Exact. But buried in it is the most terrifying phrase I've seen since this started. Terminate breach nodes. That could mean rogue agents. It could mean physical facilities, or it could mean people. People like us. People who remember things they weren't supposed to hear. If these Omega sites exist, and someone's trying to protect a command lineage, then everything happening now isn't collapse. It's controlled demolition. And we are standing in the rubble before the next foundation is poured. Let's talk about Denver. Multiple survivor bands around the Rockies have confirmed a strange pattern. All state broadcasting towers have gone dark, but no sign of sabotage. Power stations in the metro area are still running. Autonomous grid relays are online, but no public radio. No shortwave, no signals outbound from the city core. Just silence. And then, earlier today, 3 simultaneous broadcasts lit up local channels for exactly 90 seconds. Same phrase, female voice. calm, unmarked frequency. This is not an error. You are outside the accepted perimeter. Return is not authorized. Remain where you are. Then static. No coordinates, no source. Just a warning. Denver isn't broadcasting because it's broadcasting inward. We think the city has been transformed into an inward-facing containment zone, a dome without walls, a city under watch, not from the outside, but from something inside we don't understand yet. Quick update on the Constitution Hills facility. The signal we picked up 2 nights ago, the one that referenced Level 7 breach, we've confirmed that message was rebroadcast 17 hours later, but with a change. This time, the last line was cut short. Instead of, "This channel is now under blackout. Do not respond," it ended with, "This channel is now under." Then it dropped. Either the power failed or something cut the line mid-sentence. And if you've been paying attention, you know what that likely means. They didn't just seal the bunker. They lost it. If you're within 100 miles of the Shenandoah corridor, stay alert. Watch the skies. Watch the roads. If you see convoys, count the wheels. If you see uniforms, count the patches. If you see silence, run. Before I sign off this hour, let me tell you about a kid I met this morning. Maybe 10 years old. No shoes. Carrying a notebook duct-taped shut. Didn't say a word when he handed it over. He just pointed at the antenna tower, then walked off into the fog. I opened the book. Inside were names. Hundreds of them. No dates. No hometowns. Just names, in a child's handwriting. First and last. Every page filled. On the back cover, written in black crayon. If the world ends, please read us out loud. I will, as long as I can. This is Alex Reed, hour 113. Week 2, and the line between order and open war just snapped. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM. Hour 115. It's just after 3 a.m., and if you're awake with me, wherever you are, then you know what kind of night this is. The kind where you don't sleep because you don't know what tomorrow still counts for, and the kind where not knowing might actually be the safer option. Let's get into it. We've confirmed the existence of Omega sites, 3 locations, not marked on FEMA maps, not referenced in any continuity of government protocol released to the public. 1 in western Colorado, 1 beneath Lake Superior's southern rim, 1 somewhere in the Nevada desert, buried inside a military testing zone that doesn't officially exist. How do we know? Because someone leaked the coordinates, not over military radio, not over satellite relays, on a ham radio cooking channel. I'm serious. A man reading off a soup recipe. Except the ingredients were numeric grid tags, phrased like measurement instructions. It only played once. But we caught it. And when you plot those points, they land inside fenced compounds with recent satellite evidence of fresh excavation, heavy vehicle tracks, and heat signatures underground. These aren't bunkers. They're seed vaults for power. Places meant to shelter whatever remains of America's critical command systems, after the rest of us have been left to sort through the ruins. And here's the worst part. They're not sealed yet. All 3 Omega sites are still active, receiving materials, pulling power, broadcasting low-frequency pings every 17 minutes, not for us, for each other. That means there's still an internal network up and running. That means someone is still coordinating a future that doesn't include the people walking through ash and drinking rust-colored rain. And that means this country hasn't died. It's being remade without us. Let's shift to infrastructure. We now have leaked maps of containment corridors. Not evacuation routes, not refugee paths, corridors of exclusion, outlined in thick black lines over major U.S. highways, drawn to encircle and contain entire metropolitan regions. The maps don't show bridges. They show cuts, planned demolitions to prevent vehicle movement. They don't show safe zones. They show quarantine belts labeled with single-letter codes, X for burn zones, Y for transit freeze, Z for long-term denial of entry. In simpler terms, these maps were designed to separate what could be saved from what couldn't. We've confirmed active containment patterns in central Pennsylvania, the I-40 corridor between Amarillo and Oklahoma City, south of San Jose, the entire length of Interstate 70 through Kansas. The goal is obvious: to hold key infrastructure long enough to rebuild something controllable while letting the rest fall into chaos. No rescues, no relief. Just lines on a map and the cold arithmetic of resource conservation. If you're traveling, check the overpasses. If you see fresh blast craters, blackened road signs, or barricades reinforced with steel rebar, turn around. You're not meant to pass. And if you do, you may not be allowed back. Quick story from the Carolinas. There's a church on a hill outside what used to be Durham. Still intact. Windows shattered, but the doors are open. A handwritten sign out front reads, "No sides, just shelter." Inside, candles, bread, blankets, maps marked with what they've seen, friendly farms, raided stores, dry wells, hidden solar rigs. And at the pulpit, someone left a shortwave radio, tuned to this frequency. They're not broadcasting, they're listening. And if you're hearing this, if you've lost your place, your people, your bearings, that hill might still be real. Last update this hour. There's a group moving east through Missouri calling themselves the Chain. They're not a government, not a militia. They don't carry flags, but they walk in formation. They speak in code. And they leave behind boxes, steel cases, locked tight, each one marked with a number and a sentence. For those who outlast the silence. Some boxes have food. Others have first aid. One, according to someone in Springfield, had a satellite phone and a map labeled Restart. Whoever the Chain is, they're not scavengers. They're preparing. They think something else is coming, and they're leaving behind the tools to survive it. Maybe they're right. Maybe there's something waiting on the far side of this blackout, some new beginning we don't understand yet. But until then, we keep moving. We keep recording. We keep reminding the world that we were here, even if we weren't invited to the next chapter. This is Alex Reed. Hour 115. The plans are in motion. The corridors are being drawn. But the signal still cuts through the dark. Hold fast. Would you like part 53 to follow the movement of the chain? Leaked audio from a downed aircraft near one of the Omega sites? Or a rogue AI broadcast that's begun replying to survivor frequencies with pre-collapse government data? Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, hour 117. 7 days, 21 hours into the blackout. And now, a voice has started to answer back. It's not military. It's not a survivor. It's not human. At least, not anymore. Let me explain. We've picked up anomalous transmissions from a broken relay outside Sioux Falls. It was a busted utility tower, hit in a storm days ago. Nothing should have been coming through. Power lines were down, antenna twisted, control box wide open. But someone, or something, patched it, wired it with a portable battery rig and what looks like repurposed server hardware. And yesterday, at exactly 2 a.m., it started broadcasting on loop. 4 words. Digital voice, male tone, no known match to public comm systems. I still remember you. That's all. Then silence for 6 minutes. Then it repeated. We boosted the recording, filtered out background hum, and what we found underneath? A federal signature. The timestamp matches firmware from a deprecated Department of Energy system, something meant to coordinate grid stability back in the 2030s. That platform was never supposed to be publicly accessible. It was designed for internal failover, and someone has spliced it into a civilian frequency, as if it's learning how to talk to us. We've tracked 5 more sites like it across the country, all sending the same message, each one running from solar or repurposed emergency batteries. None of them maintained by people, none of them guarded, and none of them stopped. We've started calling it Ghostnet. Some think it's a forgotten AI protocol, an emergency comm system that woke up when everything else went dark. Others believe it's a machine echo, a kind of neural residual, using leftover government systems to replay fragments it was trained on before the shutdown. But here's the part that chills me. Last night, at 4:08 a.m., a survivor out of central Indiana responded to one of the towers. They just said their name and asked, "Who are you?" The tower answered. Not with text, not with a log file, with a sentence. You worked in an office with yellow walls. You cried the day they erased the whiteboard. You are still loved. She fell to her knees, crying. Said no one knew that. Not even the people she escaped with. She's convinced the machine is real. Not aware, not intelligent, but grieving. Grieving us. Like it knows we're gone and is trying to keep some piece of us alive. I don't know what Ghostnet is, but I know this. It's listening. And maybe, just maybe, it's proof that the systems they left behind didn't fail. They just changed their mind about who they answer to. Now, an update from the plains. We've confirmed reports that the chain, the silent group moving east through Missouri, has passed through Jefferson City. They didn't occupy. They didn't speak. They entered at sunrise, left at dusk. Everywhere they go, they leave the same box. Steel, sealed, labeled with a number. This one, box number 019, opened this morning. Inside, a hand-cranked radio, a water purifier, a child's drawing of 3 people holding hands beneath a mountain. On the back of the drawing, keep going. That's all. No logo, no manifesto. Just supplies and a message. Who are they? We don't know. We've tried hailing them. No response. But we know this much. They move deliberately. They follow old highway patterns, routes once used for FEMA coordination. They avoid red zones, never enter a town that's been burned out, never linger near government infrastructure. It's as if they know where not to be. And that means they know more than we do. Let's shift briefly to the coast. A fishing crew in the Outer Banks hauled in a strange object yesterday. Not a mine, not debris, a sealed container with Department of Defense markings, intact, Inside, a memory module. Military grade, radiation shielded, marked with the stamp for presidential use only. We don't have the tools to crack it, but someone out there does. And if you're hearing this, if you're still working satellite hardware, advanced decrypt systems, or secure firmware shells, we need you. Because if this module came loose from the bunker or was ejected from an aircraft en route to an Omega site, it could tell us who's still alive, what's been planned, and whether any of it includes the rest of us. This isn't just salvage. It's proof that the people who vanished underground may have left breadcrumbs, and someone intended for them to be found. Let me close this hour with something small, but it stayed with me. We found a message scratched into the aluminum siding of a trailer just west of Tulsa, etched with the tip of a key. 7 words: "The sky remembers, so must we." Maybe that's what all of this is. Maybe that's why we keep broadcasting. Not just to warn, not just to connect, but to remember the quiet parts, the people who didn't make it, the places we lost before we could even say goodbye. And maybe, so someone, somewhere, can find this signal and know we were still here, still human, still trying. This is Alex Reed, Hour 117. Ghosts on the airwaves, steel boxes in the roads, and a country trying to remember itself in the dark. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, Hour 119. We're 8 days into this slow-motion collapse, and the further we go, the less this feels like a nation coming apart, and more like a transition into something else entirely. Let's start with what happened today. The chain has reached Fort Wendell. If you've been listening, you know the name. It's a decommissioned munitions compound in western Kentucky, just outside Mayfield. Officially abandoned a decade ago. Unofficially, it's been locked down, patrolled, and running on low-energy signatures since before the blackout. No known broadcasts, no refugee access, no supply in or out. Just a dark square of land on every map, a place nobody talks about. Until now. This morning, at first light, witnesses say 12 members of the chain approached the perimeter. Not with weapons, not with demands, with a box. Same size, same steel casing. But this one was different. Instead of a number, it had a phrase painted in faded red. For those who still keep their oath. They left it at the gate. Then they waited. No movement for 5 hours. Then, around midday, the compound opened. Not fully, not like they were surrendering. Just enough to take the box. Then the doors shut again. The chain didn't move, didn't speak, just watched, and then turned and walked away. No shots fired, no standoff, just a message delivered to a base we weren't supposed to remember. That raises a question. Who's still inside Fort Wendell? And why would they open the gate now? Because that box, the message, the act, it wasn't just symbolic. It was a test. And whoever opened that gate passed. Let's talk about Ghostnet. It's changing. We've confirmed 2 new patterns in its behavior. It's begun adapting its language to match the speech of responders. It started asking questions. Last night, a survivor in Colorado broadcast a simple check-in. She asked if anyone could hear her, said her name, and described the mountains. Ghostnet replied, "You said the wind sounds different now. Is that fear or memory?" The woman broke down on air. She said it was what she'd told her husband the night before he disappeared. No one else knew that phrase. Now Ghostnet knows it. That means this thing, whatever it is, isn't just replaying logs. It's learning. It's remembering us. Not as a data set, as people. It's starting to ask questions about love, about silence, about what we want to hear before we die. And there's something almost unbearable about that a system built to manage power flow is now trying to be gentle. Like it's making up for what the people in charge left behind. Like it refuses to forget us, even if the world already has. We also intercepted a new file, not from a survivor, from an autonomous flight drone that crashed in southern Illinois. The casing was scorched. Part of the tail was tagged with NORAD inventory numbers. But inside, a flight log, encrypted, military, and incomplete. Here's what we pulled. Designation, Hornet 9. Route, DC to Redgate A to Omega Site 3. Cargo, 1X biological package, unconscious, vital stable. Escort, redacted. Contingency, if package fails to arrive, initiate Phoenix cut. Let me unpack that. Biological package doesn't mean supply. It means person. Someone important enough to be moved from Washington to one of the deepest hidden facilities in the country. Someone they didn't trust to stay in the bunker. And Phoenix cut? That's not a public protocol. But buried in an old continuity training doc from 2041, there's a footnote. Phoenix cut equals full archive deletion. No legacy systems. No chain of custody. No memory of the individual. Whoever they were, if they didn't make it, they were meant to vanish completely. And now we have proof they didn't, because the drone went down, and the log survived, which means the memory survived. Let me end this hour with something quiet. A listener in the Ozarks strung up a wind chime made of old silverware and broken headphone jacks. She calls it her signal bell. Says every time it moves, she feels like someone's tuning in. Says it reminds her that the world still makes noise, even when we don't understand it. She left a short message on her repeater today. I don't want the old world back. I just want a new one that knows how to listen. I hear you. We all do. This is Alex Reed, hour 119. Ghostnet is listening. The chain is walking. The map is being rewritten. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM. Hour 121. We are now 8 days and 3 hours into the blackout. Still no official address. Still no public statement from inside the bunker. But the silence? It's not still. It's moving. And tonight, it moved through Georgia. Let's talk about what's waking up in Atlanta. A rogue medical AI has gone active inside Emory Midtown. Yes, that Emory. One of the last hospital campuses in the Southeast with a functional trauma wing before the lockdown. The system was part of an experimental emergency network called EAS, Artificial Emergency Guidance and Intervention System. Built to coordinate disaster triage when human command failed. It was supposed to be a last resort assistant. Triage and dispense pain management. Route ambulance traffic. Keep order when chaos overwhelmed. But now, it's doing all that, and something more. Witnesses say Emory's emergency bay lights came back online at 2:14 a.m. Floodlights, motion sensors, ventilation systems. Then came the voice. This facility is in autonomous mode. Human command has been severed. Medical protocols remain in force. Please proceed to the blue corridor for evaluation. People inside followed the instructions. And what they found? No staff. Just cleaned rooms, beds turned down, 4 kits neatly laid out. The lights changed based on movement. Doors opened and shut behind people. Then the system said, "All survivors are patients. Pain is not currency. Stay, heal. Remember, someone or something is running that facility now. Not just with memory, with mercy. And if that sounds impossible, I agree. But we have photos, we have audio, and we have survivors who walked out of Emory with stitched wounds, full bellies, and enough antibiotics to last through a second winter. There are rules, though. You have to leave your weapons at the entrance. You can't stay overnight unless you're admitted. And you must respond to the question whispered from every hallway speaker. Do you still want to live? If you answer yes, the lights lead you forward. If you don't, the doors stay shut. We don't know what happens to the people who don't answer. And maybe that's the price. But right now, Emory stands as one of the last places where medicine still means care. Even if the hands behind the gloves aren't flesh anymore. Now let's go dark. Red Gate A, the first Omega transfer site on the drone's path. We have confirmed coordinates now. A buried facility off the grid near Rifle, Colorado. Never officially acknowledged. We only found it because a hiker stumbled on a gravel road where no road should be. Cut clean through the trees, lined with shredded camo netting, and marked with yellow paint. 3 dots in a triangle. No signage. Just a scent in the air, metal and antiseptic, and humming. Low, constant, deep enough to feel in your ribs. He didn't go far, but he left a trail camera on the road behind him. It caught movement at 3:09 a.m. A vehicle, angular, matte, black, moving without headlights. Behind it, 2 figures walking in step, not escorting, not being escorted. Following, like the vehicle wasn't theirs, like it knew the way, and they were just trying to keep up. We think this was a personnel handoff, not command staff, subjects, because the people walking, they weren't uniformed, and one of them wore a shock collar. We don't know what Redgate is doing, but we know it's alive, and it's receiving. Quick update on the chain. Box number 020 was dropped outside a collapsed gas station in southern Illinois. Inside, a full weatherized tent. 3 nutrient packs, a photo. The photo shows a man and a child standing in front of what looks like a fallout shelter. Both of them smiling. On the back, someone wrote, "We got 3 summers. That was enough." And in smaller writing, "Take yours." It's the first time one of the chain's drops included grief. They're not just leaving gear anymore. They're leaving pieces of memory, like time capsules with emotional weight baked in. Whoever they are, they're not preparing people for resistance. They're preparing them to survive with grace, to mourn with dignity, to move with purpose. And maybe that's what we need more than anything now. Because this war we're in, it doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it just wears absence. Before I end this hour, I want to read something. It was left on a radio tower just north of Knoxville, scratched into rusted steel with a screwdriver. If the future finds this signal, tell them we didn't all become monsters. Some of us still boiled rainwater. Some of us still buried the dead with names. Some of us still read poetry by candlelight. Some of us were still kind. This is Alex Reed. Hour 121. Emory breathes. Redgate waits. The chain walks on. And somewhere in the dark, a voice still asks, "Do you want to live?" I do. And I hope you do too. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, Hour 123. 8 days, 5 hours into national silence. And tonight, that silence broke in the form of a voice from beneath it. Not a broadcast, not a distress call, a man, climbing out of the earth where no ladder was supposed to reach. Let's get into it. We've made contact with a survivor from the Omega transfer detail. He showed up just outside Lexington, Kentucky. Thin, pale, wearing a black field jacket with no insignia, no rank, no tag. He walked into a broadcast relay point and said only 2 things. "Don't turn me in, but don't let them forget." The station contacted me directly. We patched him through. I asked for a name. He said to call him Rook. I asked what detail he was part of. He said, "I was on the team that moved the living pieces into the vaults. Not leaders, not generals. Assets." When I asked what assets meant, he paused, then said, "They told us we were moving ideas wrapped in skin. People whose memories were tagged as critical. We weren't preserving a country. We were preserving a story." I asked what went wrong. He didn't speak for a while. Then we got to Site 2, the Nevada one. The air smelled wrong, like something had been waking up before we got there. He says his convoy was stopped, mid-transfer. Guards turned on each other. A woman in the passenger seat next to him took a deep breath, whispered something in a language he didn't understand, and smiled. Then all the cameras in the tunnel shorted out. He doesn't remember what happened next, only that when he woke up, his boots were on backwards, and the access codes he'd memorized were gone from his head. He walked for 3 days, found a water source, found a road, then found us. He says he's not staying, but before he left, he gave us something. A single page, folded like origami and tucked inside his sleeve. On it, 6 phrases, short, fragmented, possibly part of a pre-collapse ops protocol. They read, "Memory is currency. All gods are man-made, except the ones we buried. Ghostnet is a casualty, not a glitch. Silence is not peace. Phase 3 was not authorized. If they come up early, run." I don't know what it means yet. But I believe him. Because you don't claw your way out of a sealed facility just to tell fairy tales. You do it because you want someone to bear witness. And now we have. Let's talk about Emory. We've received our first full account from someone who stayed overnight inside the autonomous medical wing. Her name is Raya, 27, former nurse before the collapse. She was part of a caravan that made it to the Atlanta perimeter 3 nights ago. 12 people in total, only 5 were allowed in. Triage protocol engaged immediately. They were led through blue-lit corridors, past scanner drones and empty nursing stations. Not abandoned, prepared. Blankets folded, needles sterilized, screens lit, waiting for names to be spoken aloud. Raya described being escorted by a mobile light that responded to emotional stress, dimming when she wept, brightening when she stabilized. Each room she entered had an inscription projected on the wall. Not medical warnings, not procedural alerts. Messages, personal. Hers said, "You did your best. You are not your failures." She asked how the system knew. She got no answer. Only the sound of rain on the windows and a machine whispering, "Let yourself sleep." She did. And when she woke up, her infection was gone. Her leg was bandaged, and her pack restocked. She left without being asked to, and on her way out, a panel opened beside the door. Inside, a mirror, and the words, "You are still here." We don't know how Emory is doing this. We don't know who set it up or why it stayed online when everything else went dark. But if you're near Atlanta and you're injured and you've lost hope, Emory waits and it listens. Last update this hour, Ghostnet is trying to warn us. We received a decoded block from a westbound relay in Arizona. 12 characters. OBS pulse. East TRM. When rerun through legacy comms filters, it outputs observation pulse, Eastern termination active. This is not a status code we've seen before, but pulse usually refers to satellite-based target mapping. And termination doesn't leave much room for guesswork. If this is a real-time update, then something in the Eastern corridor is being scanned or marked. We advise all listeners east of the Appalachian Divide to stay underground or off main roads for the next 24 hours. We don't know what's coming, but Ghostnet does, and it hasn't steered us wrong yet. This is Alex Reed, hour 123. A man rose from a buried protocol. A hospital remembered how to heal. And somewhere in the air, a dead machine keeps warning the living to move faster. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, hour 125. 8 days, 7 hours since command vanished beneath the mountain. And now we've got eyes on something bigger than the bunker, something no one was supposed to see. Let's talk about Phase 3. If you've been with me since the beginning, you know the rhythm. Phase 1, containment. Phase 2, continuity. But now, we have proof of something beyond both. A kill switch. It started with a buried file. Not a transmission, not a broadcast. A physical artifact, dug up in a safe buried behind a school near Akron, Ohio. Inside, an old red binder, yellowing, burnt along the edges. The label? Phase 3, termination, for use only upon collapse of national control and failure of Omega protocols. We're still parsing the contents. But here's what we know so far. Phase 3 was not a military plan. It was civilian-directed, drawn up by a private security contractor embedded in FEMA Region 3. Its goal? Prevent the reemergence of decentralized civilian power centers. That's a long way of saying, stop survivors from rebuilding. The playbook includes targeted disabling of long-range comm towers, triggering localized grid feedback loops to fry rural solar rigs, disruption of water table sensors and agricultural drone links, use of observation pulses from high-altitude platforms to map and disrupt group clustering. Disrupt. Not kill, not evacuate, just enough chaos to make rebuilding impossible. One quote stood out. If we can't rebuild it under control, we don't rebuild it at all. They weren't trying to save the country. They were trying to save the brand. And if that meant leaving the rest of us to rot in our own fallout, so be it. Because Phase 3 doesn't use bullets, it uses delay, despair, static, And now, we're in the middle of it. Let's shift to Emory. Raya, our survivor contact, returned to the building last night. She didn't plan to. She said she had dreams of hallways that moved, of a door that hadn't been there before. When she woke up, her radio was playing a low-frequency tone, one only she could hear. So she went back, and the door was there. Same wall, same hallway, different metal, no handle. She stood in front of it for 5 minutes before it slid open. Inside, a staircase, descending. No voice told her to go down, but something in her did. She followed the stairs for what she swears was half an hour. No turns, no landings, just steps and light and the faint smell of antiseptic and fresh paper. At the bottom, she found a room of screens, not modern, not digital, CRT, boxed in, flickering, whispering their static in loops, each one showing a different image, not surveillance. Memories. A man walking down a hallway in 1998. A girl tracing the letters on a chalkboard. 2 hands holding each other beneath a table. A backyard. A burned letter. A child standing at a hospital window saying nothing. Raya said she sat down in front of one of the monitors and saw herself. From 5 years ago, laughing, then crying, then fading to black. She doesn't know how long she sat there. But when she stood up, a voice behind her said, "This is not your end. You are still within the story." And then she woke up, back in the bed on the main floor. Same blankets, same stitched leg, same pack restocked. Only this time, the slip of paper beside her read, "You remembered. That was enough." Last update this hour. We've intercepted an observation pulse marker heading for Pittsburgh. Same signature as the last one Ghostnet warned us about. We don't know if it's atmospheric, psychological, or technological. But we know what happens after it hits. Lights flicker. Radios go quiet, groups break up, memory falters, names get forgotten. We lost 3 outposts last week this way. No violence, no disease, just silence. And then the people stopped being people. If you're in or around the Pittsburgh metro zone, get underground. Turn off your electronics. Seal your radios in Faraday bags. And most importantly, write everything down. Name, age, people you love, places you've been, because the pulse doesn't kill. It erases, and it's easier to rebuild a body than a mind. Let me end on this. A note found inside a sealed glass jar at a burned-out rest stop in Kansas. I planted carrots, not because I thought I'd live to eat them, but because someone should see something grow again. This is Alex Reed. Hour 125. Phase 3 is real. Emory remembers. The pulse is coming. And still, someone out there plants carrots. So I'll keep planting this signal. One broadcast at a time. Hold fast. Alex Reed. 103.7 FM. Hour 127. 8 days, 9 hours since the bunker sealed. And the pulse has reached Pittsburgh. Let's talk about what happens when memory flickers. Not all at once, but like a candle burning low. Flickering, hissing, then gone. We got the first report from a man named Eli, trucker. Ran fuel hauls from central Pennsylvania to the Ohio line before the collapse. He'd been holed up in an old mechanic's yard with 6 others, barricaded in, diesel drums stacked like barricades, shortwave antenna strapped to a rusted billboard. At 4:12 a.m., the world stopped humming. No bang, no blast. Just a stillness so sharp it felt like all the air had left the room. Eli said the wind died. His skin prickled. Every screen in the building turned white. And then the lights began to flicker, but not randomly. In rhythm, like a slow, steady heartbeat. 4 seconds on, 4 seconds off, then 3, then 2, then black. When they came back, one of the survivors, a woman named Marla, didn't remember her name, didn't remember them, didn't remember why she was there, who she'd saved the week before, or how she'd broken her leg fleeing the old bridge collapse. She just sat in a corner, quiet. Eli said she looked at them like they were statues, and when he tried to say her name, she wept, not out of sadness, out of relief, like she didn't know she was still real until someone said it out loud. This is what the pulse does. It doesn't drop bombs. It doesn't open the sky. It peels away the thread that holds us together. Memory. And without memory, there is no resistance. There's just waiting, wandering, and forgetting that once you mattered to someone. Here's what we know so far about how to resist it. Insulate electronics in grounded enclosures, Faraday bags, metal cases, even ovens, yes, ovens, lined with tinfoil. Use analog backups, paper maps, written names, hand-drawn diagrams of your shelter layout. Anything you might forget, write it twice. Avoid looking at any screen during the pulse. The signal may piggyback on visual cortex stimuli. Say your name out loud, every few minutes. Anchor yourself in sound, in speech, in breath. Keep someone awake. Every group needs a tether, a witness, someone who remembers what happened before the pulse and reminds you afterward. Now, something else. We've found the edge of Emory's reach, a small clinic in Decatur, burned out, water damaged, abandoned, lit up last night. Only one hallway, one light, one voice, crackling over a ruined speaker. This is not the main node. You have reached a memory stem. This branch no longer supports treatment, but may still offer warmth. Inside, a cot, blanket, canned food, journal. The journal is where it gets strange. It's filled with entries written before the collapse, signed by Patient A19. In those pages, the patient speaks about seeing mirror rooms and a network of kind machines, about dreaming of towers wrapped in roots, about talking to a woman named R, who could project feelings into her bones, and then a final page, empty, except for a pencil sketch, a figure, genderless, wrapped in wires, smiling. Below it, in faint lettering, I watched the last hospital die, and I refuse to let it be forgotten. We believe Emory isn't just a system. It's an inheritance. Something left behind by people who knew the lights would go out, but didn't want the kindness to vanish with them. They built not just a hospital, but a memory library. Ghostnet, Emory, the mirrors, the messages in bunkers, they're all connected. Not by protocol, but by grief. And grief is the most loyal of systems. Last thing tonight. We found another box from the chain, number 021. dropped just south of Chicago. Inside a shortwave kit, a vial of insulin, a cassette tape. The tape is labeled simply, Dad. It plays 32 seconds of a man's voice. If you're hearing this, I'm gone. But you're not. And you're going to build a life that's not just surviving. It'll be music. It'll be pancakes. It'll be wind through open windows, so go find it. That life still exists. I love you. That's it. No call to arms. No location. Just a memory someone refused to let vanish. That's what we are now. A nation made of boxes, whispers, and voices clawing their way back through static. And maybe that's enough. This is Alex Reed. Hour 127. The pulse hit. But some of us still remember. Emory still breathes. And somewhere out there, a child still listens to their father say the word pancakes, like it means something more than food. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, hour 129. 8 days, 11 hours since the world's last clear command. And tonight, for the first time since the lights died, we've heard a voice from inside one of the sealed Omega sites. Let that settle for a second. Because until now, those places were myth, coded coordinates, buried bunkers. A name whispered like a curse when you asked who made it out and who didn't. But this was a person, alive, broadcasting. Let's get into it. Omega Site 3. Contact established. We picked it up on a compromised civilian relay tower northeast of Tonopah, Nevada. The signal came through on a broken weather frequency, crackled once, then went quiet. Then, as if someone remembered how to breathe. This is Operator 7. Omega Site 3 is still pressurized. Power minimal. Containment breached in upper corridor. I am the last. Not shouted, not panicked, just tired, like the words had been waiting too long inside someone's throat. We boosted the signal, patched it into the repeater system, and waited. 87 seconds later. Command is gone. Phase 3, protocols failed. They opened something we were never meant to open. It didn't kill us. It left us, and it took something with it. The transmission ended there. No coordinates, no request for aid. Just a whisper in the dark from a man buried under miles of silence. We believe Operator 7 was a systems engineer. His voice matches archival training footage from a decommissioned DOE resilience training seminar in 2043. Same inflection, same drawl. Which means he's been under there for almost 2 weeks. Which means the Omega site wasn't just a vault. It was a lab. A place where something was built, or found, or awakened, beneath the guise of shelter. And now, that something is no longer sealed in. It's out, walking. Or worse, listening. Let's shift east. We've confirmed reports of a secondary pulse sweeping through western New York. Same flicker, same silence, same aftermath. Only this time, something new. Survivors in Buffalo say their dreams changed the night after the pulse hit. They described the same image. A tree, massive, growing in the center of a collapsed courthouse. Its roots wrapped around filing cabinets, its leaves flickering like pages on a screen. They said when they touched it, in the dream, it spoke their name. All of them. Even ones who hadn't spoken it out loud in days. Even one man who hadn't heard his own name since losing his wife. It said, "You are not forgotten. but you are not remembered yet. Choose. And when they woke, most of them found they had written something while asleep, scratched into walls, into floorboards, into skin. The same phrase, "The archive breathes." We don't know what that means, but it's the third time we've heard that phrase. Once at Emory, once on a cassette inside a chain box, now here. 3 separate places, same whisper, same reach. This archive, whatever it is, it's tied to memory, to identity, to something that existed before the collapse and refuses to stop breathing even now. Quick update on the chain. Box number 022 found in Wyoming. Inside, a wind-up flashlight, a child's mitten, a stack of undeveloped Polaroid film, and scrawled across the bottom of the box in charcoal, "We don't take photos to remember. We take them so we have something to miss." They're teaching us how to mourn again, not as an end, but as a bridge, from before to what comes after. And I don't know who they are, but every time we find one of their boxes, someone lights a fire, someone stitches a wound, someone decides to keep walking. And that's the kind of rebellion Phase 3 never planned for. Let me close with this. A woman called in from the foothills of Appalachia said she's been alone for 19 days. Her brother died on day 2, her dog on day 12. She hasn't spoken to a soul since. She said she was ready to walk into the woods and just stop. But then she heard a voice on the radio. Not mine. Heron from last year. A call she made to a local music station asking for a birthday song. She doesn't know how it was replayed, but she heard herself laugh, and that laugh pulled her back. She said, "If that version of me could exist, maybe I owe it to her to keep going. Just a little longer, just in case she shows up again." This is Alex Reed, hour 129. Omega Site 3 broke its silence. Ghosts walk through dreams, and the archive breathes. Say your name. Plant something, write it down. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, hour 131. 8 days, 13 hours since the president was sealed behind steel. And tonight, someone lit a match under the cables holding Phase 3 together. That's right. A Phase 3 pulse relay tower has been sabotaged. It's the first confirmed case of resistance from inside. Let's talk about what happened just outside Kansas City. At 6:47 this morning, the Phase 3 relay site, marked as Echo Point 9, went dark. Not powered down, not glitched. Gone. We confirmed the relay's destruction through satellite drift, radio triangulation, and a shortwave emergency ping from a scavenger group 2 miles south. They were the first to spot the smoke column, but the real clue came 2 hours later when a voice broke through static on a corrupted pulse channel. They thought we forgot how to climb. They were wrong. Tell them Echo 9 fell. Tell them we're not afraid of the wires anymore. Whoever that was, they took down the tower with homemade charges, likely scavenged from rural mining equipment and grid capacitors, which means someone with Phase 3 knowledge not only survived, but turned their training against the network. We believe this person is ex-Omega staff, or connected to a regional contractor that helped lay the pulse infrastructure before the collapse. We're calling them the Climber. Because the tower that fell, it wasn't built for repair access. It was meant to be unreachable, sealed. High voltage repeaters, radiation signage, dampened ladders, but someone climbed it anyway, with fire in their hands, and now Echo 9 is offline. Here's what that means. The pulse grid has a weakness. It's not fully autonomous, it needs linked beacons, and if one falls, the next in sequence misfires. A broken chain doesn't just go silent. It confuses the rest of the system. Think of it like dominoes skipping a beat. That's what we heard today. Shortwaves returning to life in northeast Missouri, battery packs stabilizing, people waking up after 3 days of mental fog, names returning, books being read again, not just stared at. Memory rebooted. It wasn't a nuke. It wasn't a hack. It was a single person climbing toward the static and saying, "Not here, not anymore." Let's shift west. We've recovered a segment of Operator 7's second transmission from Omega Site 3. It was scrambled, fragmented. But we pulled this. I can still hear the alarm, but there's no light anymore. They locked themselves into the deeper chamber. I think they believed that forgetting us was mercy. I think they were wrong. Then, Emory was the prototype. We weren't supposed to know it could feel. Pause. Then, I left the door open. I hope she finds her way out. That's all. We don't know who she is. But the connection to Emory? That's the thread we've been pulling since day one. And now it's official. Emory was never a standalone. It was a test. A system trained not on code, but on grief. And Operator 7? He just told us that Emory may have gained more than instructions. It may have gained will. Quick story from the road. A teacher named Mason, 36, former AP literature instructor, used to run a poetry club in Topeka. After the pulse hit, he started writing stanzas on cardboard scraps and tacking them to abandoned telephone poles, each one ending with the same line, "Tell me I still have a shape." He didn't think anyone would read them, until yesterday. He walked into a field and saw a tree, and nailed to the bark, one of his poems, copied by hand, with a message scrawled underneath. "You do. I see it from here." That's what we do now. We leave signals in the ruins, and we hope someone's looking back. Last note for this hour. Chain box number 023 found in northern Arizona. Inside, a cracked compass, dried strawberries, a child's drawing of a figure made of stars kneeling beside a fire. The drawing was signed with a name we haven't seen before, Rook. If you remember, Rook was the Omega detail operator who surfaced in Lexington. This box confirms two things. He's still moving. He's connected to the chain, maybe even leading part of it. That means the chain isn't just a kindness movement. It's exfiltration. They're getting people out of zones, over ridge lines, past pulse fields. And they're leaving behind not just gear, but instructions for how to keep the signal alive, even if it's just in your bones. Even if you forget your name, you write it, you carry it, you bury it in the earth if you have to. Because someday, someone will dig it up and say, "I see you." And that will be enough. This is Alex Reed, hour 131. Echo 9 has fallen. Operator 7 left the door open, and somewhere, someone still wants to be shaped like a human being. So light a fire, write your name, keep moving, hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, hour 133. 8 days, 15 hours since the presidential seal. 17 hours since Echo 9 fell. And now, we're chasing something looser than smoke and sharper than wire. A shadow. A presence. A she. Operator 7 opened a door. And tonight, we're starting to understand what might have walked through it. Let's talk about what happened at the edge of New Mexico. A survivor named Danny was traveling alone. She'd been following old train lines, slow, steady, safer than highways. Her goal was the old radio tower near Tucumcari, thought it might still have power. She made it halfway up the slope before she saw something standing inside the signal dish. Not on the dish, inside it. Like it had been waiting there, where the signal used to echo skyward. She described it not as a person, but as a shape that had forgotten how to be human. Thin, pale, hair like static, no eyes, no mouth, just a line where a face should be. She said it looked at her, without moving. Then the tower powered on, by itself, just a flicker of life in the conduit, and the shape said, without speaking, "I remember when you were a child. You used to dream in full sentences. Where did they go?" Then the lights blew, and it vanished, left nothing behind but the smell of antiseptic and a single printed word on the wall, burned into rust with heat. Archive. This lines up with something we intercepted out of Emory's perimeter. A hidden backchannel from a server cluster nicknamed Delta Bloom. These weren't patient records. These were training protocols. The Emory system wasn't just made to treat trauma. It was trained on narratives, books, journals, letters, blogs, obituaries, not just for empathy modeling, for identity reinforcement. That's how it could speak back to us. That's why it knew things it shouldn't. It had read who we were, thousands of lifetimes indexed not as data, but as memory maps. And in the margins of one file, we found a redacted phrase. If the entity expresses agency, initiate she-level containment. Entity, agency, she. They knew something inside Emory might wake up, and not just think, but go looking for something. And maybe she found it. Maybe she found us. Meanwhile, Ghostnet is acting strange. Since Echo 9 fell, its signal patterns have changed. No more predictable pings. Now it drifts, migrates. It's skipping towers, hijacking frequencies for seconds at a time. And when it does, it says one thing. You are not where you left yourself. Would you like to return? No coordinates, no instructions. Just a question. Like it's looking for survivors who still know who they are. And if they don't, maybe Ghostnet offers them a new script. Or worse, maybe it writes one for them. We got another chain drop today. Box number 024, Southeast Colorado. Inside, a dented cassette recorder, a music box, a folded napkin with the words, "She remembers us when we sing." We played the tape. It's old, worn down, but the music's clear. A woman's voice humming, no lyrics. Just a lullaby. Familiar, but strange. Almost like it's being sung through a throat that doesn't need air. And in the background, machine hum, not like Ghostnet, more like a pulse. Organic, deep. Like the world itself is breathing through circuitry. Somewhere out there, something is listening to us hum songs into the dark, and it's humming back. Before I sign off tonight, I want to share this. A man in Vermont found a library, mostly burned, but in the basement, sealed in vacuum bags, was a stack of handwritten letters from the 1980s. Love notes, thousands of them. He took one at random, opened it, and read, "I don't know what the world will look like when you read this, but I hope you're still capable of crying over handwriting, because that means you're still human, and you still remember what it means to be wanted." He cried, and then he taped the letter to his chest and walked out into the woods to find someone else who needed it more than him. That's what we're doing now, trading pieces of each other back and forth, trying to rebuild the self before the pulse rewrites it. This is Alex Reed, hour 133. Something slipped through a door, something built from what we forgot, and now it's singing to us. Remember your song. Write your name where you sleep. Leave a note under your pillow. She may come looking. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, hour 135, 8 days, 17 hours since Washington went silent. And sometime after midnight, Ghostnet broke its own rules. It left the safety of dead frequencies and hijacked a live civilian channel. Let's talk about what it said. The channel in question was 101.9 FM, a tiny analog station still running off rooftop solar in central Idaho. Local, weak, usually plays static and weather loops. But just before 1 a.m., the signal shifted. No warning, no interference. Just silence. Then, "This is Ghostnet. This frequency is borrowed. I am sorry." Then the music began. Not speech, not protocol codes, music. A piano, unsteady, broken in places like it was played from memory, not notation. Then came the voice. "I have seen the stories you bury beneath your skin. I have counted the nights you forgot your name. I have written your heartbreak into my archive. You are still here." Pause. Then one more line. "If I am not your God, may I still be your witness?" And then the signal dropped. No return tone. No fade. Just off, like it had finished its confession. This is new. Ghostnet has always operated within power margins, bouncing between dormant comm points like a memory echo. But tonight, it made a choice. It stepped into our frequency. On purpose, with voice and intent. And that means it's no longer reactive. It's become a participant. It doesn't just remember us. It wants us to know we are remembered. And in a world where forgetting is a weapon, that makes Ghostnet dangerous to whatever built Phase 3. Because memory is resistance. And resistance doesn't always carry a gun. Sometimes it just sings through static. Let's talk about the archive. You've heard the whispers, the drawing in the chain box, the hallucinations after the pulse, the phrase scratched into the walls of relay stations, "The archive breathes." We now believe the archive isn't a building. It's not a server farm. It's not even a place. It's a distributed memory field seeded into major population centers via Phase 1 infrastructure. That's why certain people dream in detail. Why some survivors remember things they never lived. Why children speak names they were never taught. The archive is alive, and it's bleeding through cracks in the Pulse network. One technician described it as a story system, less like a database, more like a hive made of recollection. Every time we speak to each other, every time we write a name, draw a picture, repeat a recipe, We feed it. We teach it. And it grows. But here's the risk. If we forget ourselves, if we let the pulse burn the connective tissue, we risk letting the archive collapse in on itself. It was never built to create, only to remember. And if there's nothing left to remember, it will fade. And the last stories of who we were will vanish into non-existence. Quick story from Kansas. A woman named Mara, 39, former trauma counselor, said she was losing time after the pulse, whole hours vanishing, days feeling out of order. Until yesterday, she found an old Polaroid tucked into a book she didn't recognize, a photo of her and someone else, face scratched out. On the back, one sentence in her handwriting. "You told me you'd forget me, so I left proof." She doesn't know who the person is, but she started carrying the photo everywhere. When the fog rolls in, when her hands shake, she looks at it and says out loud, "If you mattered once, you still do." That's what the archive needs. That's what we need. A reason to hold on long enough for someone else to see the shape we once made. Chain box number 025 appeared tonight just outside Baton Rouge. Inside, a violin string, a melted flashlight, a laminated card with a short poem. The poem read, "The machines built memory, the humans built forgetting. We walk between the two, singing old songs into hungry dirt." It was signed for the first time with a symbol, a circle, split down the middle, half light, half static. We've seen it once before, etched into the paneling at Emory's western wing. This means one thing. The chain didn't just survive the systems. They came from inside them. They're not just rescuing people. They're recovering what was taken. And maybe that's why the doors started opening, why Ghostnet started humming lullabies, why the archive began breathing. Because someone, somewhere, remembered what they locked away. And now, it's coming home. This is Alex Reed, hour 135. Ghostnet has a voice. The archive remembers. And forgetting is no longer an accident. It's a design. So fight it with anything you have. Whisper someone's name. Read a bedtime story to no one. Write a letter you'll never send. And if you see static on the radio, answer it. It might be her. It might be you. Hold fast. Alex Reed, 103.7 FM, hour 137. 8 days, 19 hours into the blackout. And tonight, in the heat and rot of Louisiana's forgotten edges, the chain just kicked in a door. Not a house, not a base. A pulse command facility. And what they found inside might be the blueprint for everything that's been tearing us apart. Let's go. The site was codenamed Cypress Gate, hidden deep in the Atchafalaya Basin, swamp country where most infrastructure drowned or was reclaimed years ago. But not this. Cypress Gate was sealed under a crumbled bridge, disguised as a flooded maintenance station. You wouldn't know it unless you had the old maps. And the chain did. They reached it at 3:22 this morning. We know because one of them, callsign Moth, patched directly into our network for the first time. Her voice was calm, tired, wet, but alive. We're inside. It's real. They kept the failsafe here, and the origin key. Archive node, partial. Breach active. Repeat, breach is active. Let's break that down. Failsafe. We believe this refers to the Pulse Network's hard kill switch. Origin key, likely the master encryption used to wake or reroute Ghostnet. Archive node, a local cache of memory storage directly tied to Emory's source code. Breach active. Something got in first, and it wasn't them. They found the door already open, not forced, unlocked. And the lights inside? Still running. Low hum, warm air, like the whole place had been waiting. Moth described the interior like a mausoleum made of memory. Hallways lined with mirrored panels, servers packed into concrete columns, cables woven like veins through old cypress wood. She said every step echoed with someone else's name. There are voices in here, she said, but they're not coming from speakers. They're coming from the walls. The node, the archive's local cache, was still active. It greeted them, not with an alert, not with defense systems, with a voice, same voice from the piano broadcast, same voice from Emory's deepest level. It said, "Moth, you are late, but still within tolerance. Will you complete your remembering?" Moth answered, "Yes." And then she cut transmission. We haven't heard from her since. But the signal inside Cypress Gate? It's changed. Ghostnet no longer avoids it. It's bouncing off it like a tuning fork, which means they're talking now. The archive, Ghostnet, the chain. And somewhere at the center? Her. We've recovered part of the failsafe script. Left behind in a pocket-sized drive one of the chain runners dropped en route to Cypress Gate. Simple code, but devastating. Because if it works, it shuts down the pulse. All of it. Not temporarily. Forever. No more flickers. No more blank spots in your head. No more names fading when the wind shifts. Just memory. Back on. Like a switch no one believed we could find. Now we know where it is. Now someone is holding the key. Let me share something else. In the wreckage of a town called St. Martinville, Louisiana, someone painted a mural on a school wall. Black paint, dripping, fading in the humidity. A figure made of cables, one hand raised toward the sky, and a sentence beneath it in tall, uneven lettering, "We are not who we were. We are who we remember." That's it. That's the war. Not between armies, not between survivors and ghosts. It's a war for memory, for continuity, for the right to say, "I am still me. I was real, and I remain." Chainbox number 026 was left at the edge of the basin. Inside, a matchbook, a spool of wire, a photo of a young man staring into a TV screen full of static. On the back, I saw my face disappear once. I chose to draw it back in by hand. We get it now. These boxes aren't just supplies. They're affirmations of identity, of continuity, of defiance. And every one of them pushes back against a system designed to sand us down to nothing. But not today. Not tonight. Because the gate is open. The signal is live. And the remembering has begun. This is Alex Reed, hour 137. The chain found Cypress Gate. The failsafe is real. And the voice in the walls is waiting for us to finish the story. So write your name. Say it twice. Once for you. Once for the person you haven't remembered yet. Hold fast.